Peace and love, peace and love. This is Ross Spin bringing a special treat for y'all. I'm honored to be in the virtual presence of Sister Julie Sky, who, if I'm correct, is the 9th grandchild. Is that correct?
That is correct.
The 9th grandchild of Chief Tamamend. And for those who are familiar with my Great Mystery Philadelphia work, know that Chief Tamamend was the Sachem of the Lenape during the times of William Penn, 1680s. He is credited with quote unquote signing Penn Treaty and establishing Philadelphia. He's also the patron saint of the United States. Okay? And, that plus other aspects of his life makes him a pivotal character in the Great Mystery Philadelphia. So it's I'm still kind of blown away. You got to excuse me if I'm not like clear and coherent, because the excitement and wonderment that I'm actually speaking to a descendant of Tammany, it's blowing me away.
You're so nice.
Oh, no worries. But I'm going to stop running my mouth. Y'all heard what it means to me, but let's hear direct from Sister Julie. And, please tell us your life story, how you came aware of your lineage with Tammany, and what does it mean to you?
I first want to just thank you so much for, having a conversation with me today about Tamamend and about you helping, spread the word about Tamamend, because it's really important to the Lenape people. I was raised with the Salish Kootenai tribe over in Arlene, Montana with my mother, and I got to grow up with the culture, and it's absolutely beautiful, and it's transmutable, of course, over to the Lenape as well. And the Lenape, the line runs through my dad and through his mother, and it's pretty impressive and blows my mind even to this day to be able to even have a connection with Tamamend, and I feel very spiritually connected with Tamamend and with my culture that I grew up with. And I'm so blessed that I have created a partnership with Curtis Suningwa, who is a registered Delaware Lenape, and he runs a center called the Lenape Center, where they are trying to increase the awareness about the importance of the Lenape, and especially with Tamamend and what he did with Penn. He really started the foundations of our country, and the way he was doing it is something that is so beautiful to me, because he was doing it with love and compassion and diversity and equality, and in tune with his culture and with our culture, with nature, and how the synchronicity of all of that kind of works together. And so when I had the opportunity to reach out, it was last May 1st, and I got to actually celebrate my holiday with Tamamend and all of the Lenape people's holiday, all of America's holiday, which is May 1st, with the Lenape people, as Curtis did a virtual celebration on Facebook. And I was sitting in an airport. I was actually flying to Montana to go see my fiance, and the live video was about to start. And I just felt so connected and so happy that I can actually talk to the Lenape. I had no idea where they were at with Tamamend Day and recognizing that as a holiday. And so now we're able to partner together, and it's really beautiful, to be able to have that connection. My mother unfortunately passed away, and she was my real true connection to the Salish and Kootenai people. And it took me a little while, but I was able to get my daughter to powwow and to teach her about the culture and to show her how to dance and teach her about all the love and the respect that comes with that culture for everything and everyone that is in this universe. And I think that that's something that our country needs more than anything right now, is to remember that we are part of nature and that we can harmonize with nature, and we can find the compassion and the love inside of us to be respectful to each other and, you know, to our animals and to the trees and to all of it, because we're here to be caretakers of the land. And I truly believe that. You know, I live up in the woods, and there's bears up here. There's, you know, all kinds of stuff, cougars and stuff. And, you know, I just grew up that way, living in Montana, and now I live in Washington. And I put myself in that position because I just love nature and I want to be a part of it and find ways to be able to really harmonize with it. So, yeah.
And I know you're a part of some efforts to really get Tamamend's name more in people's minds and hearts. So tell us what's happening with that.
You know, I just really have to be so blessed and thankful that the community of Pennsylvania is so interested in Tamamend, and there's so many people that really want to participate and support the messages of peace and love and diversity and equality that Tamamend brings. And one of those people is Don Allen, and it looks like you are going to be bringing up something that is really spectacular.
Yes.
And this is
okay.
the of Tamamend, and it's only half a block away from Penn Treaty Park, where Tamamend and Penn met each other. And Don Allen is a wonderful man. He decided to have this commissioned. Him and I got to talk before he put it on the building, and he told me a little bit about, you know, how he was memorializing his partner who actually had this idea after there was some spray painting and stuff done on the building, and he decided that he wanted it to be covered up with something that represented peace and equality and love and diversity. And so he ended up doing a dedication ceremony for Tamamend and the mural, and also for his partner that had passed. And I actually got to do a little dedication letter for that, which made me feel very honored. And at the time, I was a part of the Association of American Indian Affairs, and I was able to share the mural and also the dedication letter, and the Native Americans on there really appreciated it and liked it, as well as Curtis Suningwa. And I ended up leaving the Association of Native American Affairs so that I could focus on Tamamend Day and working on bringing that back as a national holiday.
Mm. And that would be May 1st?
Yes, May 1st is Tamamend Day, which has always been, even prior to, you know, my full knowledge of all of this, you know, May 1st was always a special day. I lived in Hawaii for a little while with my dad, and on May Day, we would make each other flower necklaces, and we'd give it to each other out of love. And, you know, it was just a really special day to begin with. And then to find out that, you know, this was his day and how much love he had, it just makes it all kind of come full circle. Mm-hmm. So these are things that we're going to be doing this year. We are going to be celebrating Tamamend Day virtually. Curtis Suningwa and I have a Facebook page. It's currently called Tamamend Day 2020, but we'll be changing it very soon to Tamamend Day 2021. And then we have really big goals for next year. We're really hoping that it's safe and that everybody can get together. We can meet at Treaty Park. And Curtis Suningwa and I would like to speak to everybody about the culture of the Lenape and share about Tamamend, and also make sure that everybody knows that the Lenape are still here. We want to bring everybody together. The Lenape tribe is all over the country, even up into Canada. And we would like the Lenape to come. We would also like any other tribe that would like to participate to come, and really anybody that is interested in learning more about the culture. We have had quite a few people reach out. I had somebody, his name is Jeff Beer, and he would like to be able to play at the celebration in 2022. So this year, you know, come join us on Facebook on Tamamend Day 2020, soon to be Tamamend Day 2021. If you have any questions, anything like that, you can email me at jalisky@hotmail.com.
All right. So y'all know what it is. And I would imagine that's going to be a day where people who are informed on the legacy and traditions associated with Tamamend are going to be sharing information and networking. And is that kind of what's lined up?
Absolutely. And, I think that people will be able to hear some of the Native American music, which is incredibly powerful. When I hear the drum beat, it just really hits my soul. And I think that it'd be great for people to kind of have a little bit of an immersion of the culture so that they can experience it with us.
All right. So y'all know what it is coming up. Facebook virtual link, Tamamend Day 2021. And this is an effort to get momentum for what we hope is a actual, real, in-person Tamamend Day, May 1st, 2022, here at Penn Treaty Park. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. So, yes, significant. So, hey, you got time, right?
I got lots of time.
Oh, awesome. Because I got a lot I would love to explore with you.
Yeah, that sounds exciting.
Yeah. So first is, I have to be honest. When I shared with a couple of folk, like, yo, the 9th grandchild of Chief Tamamend reached out to me. We're going to do some, we're going to do some works together. They were like,
yeah.
Really, Ross? How do you know? How do you know she is who she says she is, right? So I was like, wow, I don't. You're right. So I had to do a little digging, right?
Yeah.
And I saw that you claim lineage from Miotaka
Miyatoka.
What? How do you pronounce it?
Miyatoka Nyayesawana.
Yes.
And her last
Thank you. And that she is the 4th grandchild of Tamamend, or 5th?
I believe that is the lineup. I can kind of go through it from Tamamend down.
All
to
right.
Miyatoka.
I got it lined up. Let's roll through it. All right. Okay. Yeah. So, right, we have Tamamend,
the founder of our country there, and his daughter married his daughter married Nudamis.
Yes.
And Tamamend's daughter had a child together, and that was Netawatwees. And Netawatwees has a lot going on over there in the Ohio area. After Netawatwees was Bamino, John Bamino Kilbuck, and that is Miyatoka's father, is John Bamino. And that lineage right there just really kind of leads me into a conversation that I had recently with a sculptor. And he is going to be creating a sculpture that is, I believe, is going to be incredibly amazing, because he's done a lot of sculptures that have been for like war museums and just all kinds of amazing stuff. And he's going to actually sculpt Tamamend next to Nudamis, next to Bamino, next to Miyatoka. And Miyatoka is going to be holding her baby, Jacob. And Jacob is the reason why my lineage is here. Jacob was kind of like a survivor. And the Miyatoka story is actually pretty sad, because she ended up passing away with a lot of her children. But Jacob kind of represents the bridge between our Native American lineage and our European lineage on my Lenape side. And the sculptor, his name is Alan Cottrill, is actually a descendant of the Schoolcrafts as well. So he's going to do 7-foot sculptures where you can just kind of walk in between and amongst them. I think it's quite amazing. He's working on funding and stuff now And yeah, it's very impressive. I've seen a lot of his work on his page, and if you Google Alan Cottrell or Cottrill, it's spelled Alan, and his last name is Cottrill. You will see his work, and it's very impressive.
Mm-hmm. So Jacob Schoolcraft
Yeah,
is your lineage from Miatoka.
correct.
All right. Because if I'm not mistaken, she had 13 or 14 youth.
Yeah, she had 14 children, and when she passed away, 9 of them also passed away with her.
Wow. And
Yeah,
it's my understanding she passed in like an Indian raid.
correct. That's correct.
Do you have any
Uh,
details on that or?
I have a grave marker for her that was made. It has the year that she had passed away in 1779, and yeah, it's on her grave. I have the coordinates, and I'm going to go and kind of honor her. And I was going to make something for her and kind of bury it like around the area as, a gift in a way
Yes.
for her. Yeah.
Do you?
Um,
Oh, go ahead.
oh no, you go ahead.
I was just going to ask, do you know any other lore connected to the lineage?
I am still learning a lot from the Lenape. There is a lot written down about the involvement of the Killbucks and the Revolutionary War. There are letters, copies of letters. There are treaties that have Bamino's signature on them.
Yeah.
There is a treaty that has Tammany's signature on it also. It's a snake, but we're going to be doing kind of a little education on our Facebook where we talk about Nudimus and we talk about Netawatwis and we talk about you know a lot of the prominent Lenape, including the person you have up there right now, Gellamond, who is Bamino's son.
Right.
And we're going to be sharing information to educate, and then we're going to be storing the history and kind of creating something that the Lenape can use to go as a resource, or anybody can really go kind of check it out.
Okay. And that's going to be what, on its own website or just within the Facebook page?
Originally, it'll start on our Facebook, and then as we build it, start storing it, and I believe it'd be on the Lenape Center's website.
Okay. Yeah, I brought up the information on Gellerman because, yeah, it did seem like he was pivotal in the Lenape's destiny as it related to the War of Independence, And like one of the things we look at in the Great Mystery Philadelphia is that there was like this we say a master plan Ben Franklin was rolling out or orchestrating, particularly in Pennsylvania. And it was essentially like a divide and conquer strategy on a like on a continental scale. The idea was to divide the Iroquois against the Algonquin, Iroquois speakers versus Algonquin speakers. And so, you had that strategy playing out. But then with the War of Independence, there was within the state of Pennsylvania, like a divide and conquer within the Lenape, forcing some Lenape sachems to align with British troops and forcing other Lenape sachems to align with colonial forces. And it seems like Gellerman chose colonial forces, and was a active agent in the, divide and conquer, the Lenape versus Lenape. And, we're here at this, like, 400 years at the end of this dispensation. These are, the type of things that we do have to explore and reconcile, within our bloodlines, forgive self and ancestors, and then align our, like, what we're doing, like how you're motivated to use Tammany's legacy in a redemptive way to, heal and bring a oneness and bring an awareness of this legacy, you know. It's to heal these like what would you say, the full circle of our legacies, And like I said, I don't know how familiar you are with my Great Mystery Philadelphia works, but I really do feel the opportunity to publicly look at such a historical figure's lineage and their role in history, and the momentum of which has brought us to this point where we could have these profound discussions at such a critical and pivotal time in this nation's history. you know uh Powerful. So I'm thankful to hear that you all are going to be amassing a history on the Facebook page, and I I'm definitely going to support it growing into its own site, and have it be a vast resource that we could all tap and check out. you know so yeah, thank you for sharing. you know
Yeah, very
is there
much.
anything
You're
else,
incredibly
any other
intuitive.
are there any other ancestries uh
Not
between Jacob, Schoolcraft, and yourself, who did things that reflected Tammany's legacy?
I think that there is some of his lineage that has done that, but most of all, I believe it's the Lenape people themselves that are still here and alive today that are, passing the culture to their children. They're continuing to have powwows. They're continuing to teach each other, traditional ways, and they are, trying to together because they really are, erased from history, and our history needs to be rewritten completely for our children in schools to include everything.
Yes.
We
Yes.
just kind of went that and talked about, the healing and stuff, and that is incredibly true. It is so true. It is definitely important. I think it's important for a lot of people to work on their ancestral lines and understand, what happened, and try to truly understand it, like what was going on back then, and why was all this happening, and how did it go from, let's start this peaceful country that we share together and we travel along the land and it's your land and it's my land and nobody owns it, to, the greed and stuff that we have today. And I think it's the distractions that are out there now are really kind of pulling away from what's truly important, which is paying attention and asking questions and learning for yourself and finding a way for peace and happiness through, for me, it's through nature. It's always been through for me.
Yes. So, as we said, Chief Tamamend is considered the patron saint of the United States. What is your understanding or your overstanding? How do you see? What does that mean? What's your perspective on that?
I think that when Penn came here and started talking to Tamamend, and Tamamend was such a friendly and, jovial person, that they had found some alliances and some similarities with what they believed, which was, having the shared land and the equality and being able to move freely through the land, which is just such an amazing concept to even think about right now today. I just think that it's when you talk about him being the patron saint of America, I mean, he was one of the founders of America that's not in the history books, and I believe that our children in the Lenape and our country deserves to hear what America's foundations were supposed to be, which was supposed to be based on, diversity and acceptance of all and everything. And it's so hard to see what happened afterwards that I try so hard to focus mainly on what the good is and what we can learn from him. And this statue is amazing, by the way. It's fantastic. The artist did a wonderful job on this, and the eagle, the Great Spirit. Yeah, that is absolutely spectacular. And then the turtle, which represents Mother Earth. Yeah, beautiful.
Yes.
Stunning. And this is of great stature. This is gigantic.
Yes.
I don't know how tall it is. I'm gonna say it's like 9 feet tall or something on top.
Pretty large. It's relatively inaccessible. It's on a high pedestal that's fenced off, and so you can't really get but so close to it,
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, the turtle.
yes, this is located at Front and Market Street in Center City, Philadelphia, and yeah, we could decode it a little later, I'll if you don't mind,
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll share some focus on that. And I did just want to ask, right, like you have an awareness of yourself as being this descendant of Tammany. Are there ones, like, do you have friends or associates that feel like, hey, you have a responsibility to really stand up for the true American spirit, so to say, and, advocate the principles that Tammany stood for? Are you hearing calls for that?
Growing up with the Salish, and my grandfather was raised on the reservation over in Arley, and I got to live with him, and he taught me so much about the land and animals and how important all of that is. And growing up with the culture and going to powwows and having them be intertribal powwows where everybody can go out there and dance with each other, and you have this spiritual connection, and it's just absolutely powerful, incredibly powerful. And having been grown up with that, I feel incredibly obligated for myself to do whatever I can. I had a newspaper article back in March of 2020 by Carl Laveau over in Pennsylvania, and I wrote in there, I'm just one person, I'm one woman. I got a powerful voice, but I can only, go so far. I have to have other people that, have a shared, direction for wanting to elevate the true history of America and the values that Tammany had instilled in our country from the beginning.
Yes.
And before colonialism, they've been doing this for and ever and ever.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Hey, can we share, like, my research can we review my research on Tammany and
Absolutely.
his place in the Great Mystery Philadelphia, and
Yes.
and just
But,
reflect on that? All right,
yes.
we'll pull it up. All right. What's happening here? All right, here we go. So let's start looking at like what was really happening with Penn Treaty, because a lot of times you get the you know sanitized historic narrative. You know what I mean? But then if
Yes.
you dig a little deeper, you get some intricacies that really gives you food for thought. You know. And just to give a little backdrop about Penn Treaty, I think we should all reflect on. I want to start by saying, when you really check it out, William Penn was the front man and fall guy for the colony of Pennsylvania. Okay? The colony of Pennsylvania was not named Pennsylvania for William Penn Jr. It was actually given to his father, who was Admiral Penn, who was a, British naval officer who was responsible for taking Jamaica away from the Spanish and putting it under British control. Because of that, he was paid the 40th parallel, the American continent on the 40th parallel, colony right above Lord Baltimore's Maryland, which was supposed to be the 39th parallel, right? So uh, the very first governor of Pennsylvania was a man named William Markham, and he made the provisional capital what is now Chester, Pennsylvania, which is about 10 or 15 miles south of Philly today. And at that time, though, it was called Upland, right? And this land already had by this time, we have to say the Lenape Nation had been decimated by, uh, you know, uh, continuous warfare, intermittent but continuous warfare between the Iroquois as well as the Susquehannock, and they had battled plagues, so that the remnant of the Lenape in this land were, they were much fewer in number and kind of in a weakened state. They had also already deeded a lot of the land to Swedes, who had, most of whom were Huguenots, Sephardic, Moorish refugees from Sephora, France region, as well as Portugal, right? So this is kind of the setting in which William Penn came. And this is kind of the backdrop for what we would call Penn Treaty, all right? And William Penn and Chief Tammany definitely, for sure, had a treaty of peace and friendship. The big question comes in is, did that treaty of peace and friendship include a granting of land which became, Penn's Philadelphia? Okay. So that's the big, historical question and the big historical debate. And I'd even give a little backdrop on that, where it's been my research that a part of Lenape culture, a part of Lenape tradition, because the Lenape historically are a refugee society, people that have come from different places from around the world, you know, uh, have, sought refuge in Lenapehoking. And the tradition would be, particularly with uh, the grandmother council, is if you were to honor the law of one and, you know, uh, live in oneness, like you say, the law being in one with nature, right? You could have as much land as you could walk in a day, you know? And, or I should say, be custodian of as much land as you could walk in a day, not have, you know? And that was extended to William Penn, but it wasn't Penn's Philadelphia. It was a land further up the Lenape, which, you know, they call the Delaware River today, in Lower Bucks County, in an area called Newtown, Pennsylvania. But William Markham and a couple of like his business associates, they really wanted Penn's Philadelphia for various reasons. You know, I would say the most important was probably a spiritual or metaphysical reason that what is now called Fairmount, where the Philadelphia Museum of Art rests atop, was a sacred Lenape mound, the largest mound within, you know, the Lenape River Valley. And the Lord said, whatever happens there happens with the full participation of the earth, you know, and that there was three individuals, a man named Thomas Fairman, Elizabeth Kinsey, and Les Cock, who were working with William Markham to, you know, gain control of this land. Okay, so, and let me back up. All of this information, I'll give you the source of this, okay, because this is the most detailed account of what actually happened at Penn Treaty that I think we could find. And it's in Theodore Bean's History of Montgomery County, dated 1884. Okay, so you can find this online. And I even think some libraries in the greater metropolitan Philadelphia area, some like libraries of historical societies, may have hard copies of this as well. Okay, so Thomas Fairman and Les Cock, they were actually present at Penn Treaty. Les Cock was the interpreter between William Penn and the Lenape. Thomas Fairman was Penn's broker or representative at Penn Treaty, but they both had a vested interest in the outcome of, like, Penn Treaty, also including them getting the land that was known as Shakaxamoxen. Okay, and yeah, right, I should mention that, right, prior to it becoming Penn's Philadelphia, it was known as Shakaxamoxen, or the place where the kings meet. And you alluded to it. This was a neutral land. This land was a land where any of the local kings could come, as well as have safe passage to and from, you know, on certain trails, so that they could come and speak and meet and work things out, you know. So it was like an indigenous capital where different federated states could come and you know, live in a oneness, right? So Les Cock was a Swedish settler in this area. And remember I said when William Penn came and William Markham came, there were already Swedes who had land deeded to them, you know. But again, it's my understanding Shakaxamoxen could not be deeded. No one had the authority to deed Shakaxamoxen. If anyone was able to make any decision about Shakaxamoxen, it would have been the Queen Winona. And Winona and this is something we definitely would like to talk about. But Winona is more of a title uh, than one individual, but it usually was like the queen mother, the daughter of the Lenape chief, who was to grow into the, I guess, supreme decision maker on issues related to land, and tribal governance, right? So, uh, but Les Cock, the Swedish settler, he claimed to have had a deed for Shakaxamoxen, right? And that he was selling it, or that he had sold it to a man named John Kinsey, who was a big landowner owner in New Jersey. John Kinsey, and this land transaction was supposed to have occurred in 1677, right? John Kinsey died that same year. But they claimed that the transaction was completed, right? But they didn't have a deed to prove it. Elizabeth Kinsey subsequently married Thomas Fairman, right? And they moved to Shakaxamoxen and built a house on the land before the deed was, authenticated and verified. So when you see accounts of Penn Treaty and you see a colonial home on the property, this is the home of Thomas Fairman and Elizabeth Kinsey. And again, they built this home before they had a deed showing that they actually did have the land. And again, it's my understanding this land could not be deeded. It was neutral land where all of the various tribes would come together, right? So that set the stage. That set the stage for William Markham, Thomas Fairman, and Las Cock to, in my opinion, manipulate William Penn and Chief Tammany into uh, building into Penn and Tammany's Treaty of Peace and Friendship, right? The deed for what they call Penn's Philadelphia, right? And again, Markham did this by setting up for William Penn to have Les Cock be his interpreter between Tammany, the other sachems that were in attendance, and William Penn, right? Then he also had Thomas Fairman be Penn's broker, okay? So the reality is we have to ask the question, does either side, Penn or Tammany, really know what they were agreeing to, with these guys and their different motives? So this is more or less the historic account. They say, Markham was there with Penn. Also in attendance was Thomas Holmes, who was Penn's surveyor general, Les Cock, who acted as Penn's interpreter. There were also several members of the Pennsylvania Council, and of course, Thomas Fairman representing Penn to broker the deal. The indigenous that were supposed to have been there were representatives of the Lenape, as well as the Menguas or the Iroquois, the Six Nations, right? The Shaughnessy Nation, the Ganassi Nation, the Conestogas or the Mingos, all right? Leading the indigenous was Tamamend or the chief Sachem of the Lenape. He was a member of the Turtle Clan. And, this was their home, Lenape Hoking, right? Which is the land of the elders. And there's many reasons why this land is Shakaxamoxen, the place where the kings meet, but aligned with the tradition and the culture. Uh, if there is dispute, if there is conflict, what do? You go and you sit before your elders. And so the Lenape weren't just any old Algonquin speaker. They were the grandfathers, elders of the ones of this region. And we know that Lenape Hoken had continuous inhabitation for at least 13,000 years, you know? So, uh, representing the elders, Tamamend sat at the center of a crescent formation made by his council, arcing out, each one of them with their legs seated. Penn and his council created a similar formation. Tamamend's name means easy to talk to. And that's very important. We'll talk about that, you know. But like you say, by all accounts, whether it was other indigenous, speaking of Tamamend, or other colonists who had an opportunity to personally engage with him, Tamamend was renowned for his grace and, a noble countenance and one that was always agreeable and just honorable, and one that even operated from an innocence of intention. And, the irony of it is that even as the patron saint, he is the archetype in Western media of the noble savage, that even that he had all of these social graces, he still wasn't quite human, you know? But here's an account of Tamamend that's, worthy of reading. The name of Tamamend is held in the highest veneration among the Indians and of all the chiefs and great men which the Lenape nation ever had. He stands foremost on the list, but although many fabulous stories are circulated about him among the whites, but little of his real history is known. All we know, therefore, of Tamamend is that he was an ancient Delaware chief who never had his equal. He was in the highest degree endowed with wisdom, virtue, prudence, charity, affability, meekness, hospitality, in short, with every good and noble qualification that a human being may possess. He was supposed to have had intercourse with the great and good spirit, for he was a stranger to everything that was bad. I want to pause here real quick. Remember when we looked at your Tamamend's genealogy, right? One of the greatest mysteries I've yet to be able to solve, and I even asked you about this, is who was Tamamend's wife? This queen goddess Winona, the ultimate decision maker of how land is distributed. When we study your tree, right? Tamamend's wife is unnamed. It just says that he was the father of 3 youth. No mention of his wife, right? At least I wasn't able to find one. This is I'm charging you with this mission. You got to help me find your 9th great grandmother, all right?
I'm working
But
on it. I'm trying.
yes, and even Tamamend's daughter, she's not named.
No, a lot of the women were
Yeah,
not.
but she would be Winona. She would carry the title of Winona because Winona means daughter of the Sachem, daughter of the chief, you know? So I would give the wife of Newtimus the name Winona also, but we got to find out more about them. They're a great mystery, you know.
They are. I want
Uh,
to.
uh, you know, I think Winona, beyond being a queen, she was a goddess. She was a goddess. Why? Because you find this account a couple of times. One of the only references that you find to the queen goddess are these allusions to her. That one of the things that made Tammany easy to talk to was that he had intercourse with this divine spirit, the great and good spirit. So who are you having intercourse with? You know what I'm saying? It had to be the queen goddess. So here is like I have found a couple of accounts that speak to that, but here is one in uh, a missionary Heck Wilder, again from like 1817, right? So, but jumping back to Penn Treaty, these are the words attributed to Chief Tamamend at Penn Treaty. We will be brethren, my people and your people, as the children of one Father. All the path shall be open to the Christian and the Indian. So all the trails, all the paths, it's going to be open to both. The doors of the Christian shall be open to the Indian, and the wigwam of the Indian shall be open to the Christian. The Christian shall believe no false stories. The Indian shall believe no false stories. They shall first come together as brethren and inquire of each other. When they hear such false stories, they shall bury them in the bottomless pit. The Christian, hearing news that may hurt the Indian, or the Indian, hearing news that may hurt the Christian, shall make it known, the one to the other, as speedily as possible, as true friends and brethren. The Indian shall not harm the Christian, nor his friend. The Christian shall not harm the Indian, nor his friend, but they shall live together as brethren. As there are wicked people in all nations, if the Indian or the Christian shall harm the one or the other, compliant shall be made by the sufferer, that right may be done. And when right is done, the wrong shall be forgotten and buried in the bottomless pit. The Indian shall help the Christian, and the Christian shall help the Indian against all evil men who would molest them. We will transmit this league between us to our children. It shall be made stronger and stronger, and be kept bright and clean without rust or spot between our children and our children's children, while the creeks and rivers run, and while the sun, moon, and stars endure. So these are the words attributed to Tamamend at Penn's Treaty, you know? So, like, this is what the Great Mystery Philadelphia tells us. Did an agreement of peace and friendship occur between William Penn and Tamamend at Shakaxamoxen? Absolutely. You know? In the minds of the Lenape, though, did that agreement involve transferring ownership of Shakaxamoxen to Thomas Fairman? No. And did Les Cock, the interpreter, and Thomas Fairman, as broker, manipulate the discourse to make it include a transfer of Shakaxamoxen? Probably. You know, when we look at the traditional story, they say Penn brokered a purchase of all of the land from the Lenape, which is the Delaware River, to the Manayunk River, which is today the Schuylkill River, between what is today South Street and Spring Garden or Ray Street to the north for 1,200 pounds. And right, I heard you say that there is a document outlining the treaty, you know. Uh, But Penn is said to have signed this deal with articulated terms that were kind of hastily translated into Algonquin, and that a wampum belt was, you know, exchanged to affirm this purchase, right? And it says in Shakaxamoxen, the Lenape and Europeans were to live in peace as long as the creeks and rivers run, and while the sun, moon, and stars endure, right? And one of the kind of twisted ironies of that is when you study metropolitan Philadelphia, most of the creeks and streams have been buried over and turned into what we use today as our sewage systems, you know? So that's another complex dynamic when we look at Penn Treaty, how the land, and this is like Earth Day, you know? I was at an Earth Day events a couple of times this week, and that dynamic and issue came up, you know? So yeah, it's just a lot of complexity, you know. I think I've run my mouth enough. What are your thoughts on that, you know, and what I've shared? Or is there anything you would want to add and build to that?
Well, one thing is, how Native Americans viewed the land is, that nobody really owns it, that the Great Spirit, provides for us, and that we can go to where we need to go to get what we need to get. And so when, treaties and things like that were happening, the understanding of the Lenape was that, basically they're just kind of like coming over and like want to camp for a while, and we're cool with that. And like, as long as they don't come into the big areas where the villages are and stuff, that's okay. And everybody just shared the land because nobody could ever truly own it because it could never belong to them. And so they believed that when, all of this was happening. And so it was incredibly sad, when, the realization of what truly happened occurred, and they lost, a lot of sacred places and a lot of places that they used to survive.
Yes, yes. And I'm going to forward this research to you so that you can
Thank you
share
very
it,
much.
that you can share it with the ones you're building that resource, database, because
Yeah,
I think that's relevant, you know,
absolutely.
relevant. Okay. Uh, let's look at some other accounts, as far as Tamamend Day, right? Uh, this is an account of like the first Tamamend Day, May 1st, 1777. And I think this was actually the day Tamamend was named patron saint. And John Adams attended the Tamamend festival here. And this is what he wrote about it. This is King Tamamend's day. Tamamend was an Indian king of this past of the continent. When Mr. Penn first came here, his court was in this town. He was friendly to Mr. Penn and very serviceable to him. He lived here among the first settlers from some time and until old age. The people have sainted him and keep this day. Yes. And I think the following year, May 1st, 1778, uh, here's an account of George Washington and Continental Army celebrating Tamamend Day at Valley Forge. They say the men spent the day in mirth and jollity in honor of King Tamamend, you know. And what's your awareness of Tamamend societies?
Well, I am aware of Tamamend societies and how they kind of utilized Tamamend's stature and what he represented within their societies. I know that there wasn't a lot of amazing things going on there, but it is how probably his name survived for so long is because of that.
Interesting. Well, we do go deep into it in the Great Mystery Philadelphia. I'm not going to get into it tonight, you know. Uh, but yeah, you know, it's I will say, uh, I think the legacy of Tammany is so powerful and profound. It's been used by many people by many ways, you know, and I don't put a value judgment on it or a good, bad perspective, but I think it does uh, say, like, hey, what are we doing for Tammany's legacy? And I think it, you know, speaks to the importance of what you're doing. So, again, I appreciate the opportunity for us to be able to come together and talk about these uh, profound legacies, you know, that shaped the nation. And, you know, even though they lived out hundreds of years ago, have such profound influence on what we're living today, you know. So you have any closing words or anything you'd like to share?
Well, one thing I wanted to talk about really quick is the Delaware Water Gap, and it
Yeah.
is absolutely a outstanding and what would be called, which a little bit blows my mind, a natural um, carving. And it's called Mount Tammany right there. And you can see the Indian's chief's face right there on the face. Not saying it, you know, necessarily is Tammany, but for it to be called natural is something that really blows my mind. And for the area and for that to be there, it looks quite spectacular. I really want to come over there and kind of see that and adventure around, get a tour, maybe a Roz Bend tour.
Oh, you have to. You got to. Yes.
Fantastic. Um, so this is one place that I find quite interesting, and something that I just really encourage everybody to do is to ask a lot of questions about what you see, whether it's, you know, something like this, definitely a natural creation here, or if it happens to be, you know, just questioning what you see in nature, you know, questioning what you see in the world, and using your own brain to figure stuff out and learning as much as you can from nature, I think is incredibly important for us. Oh yeah, this is another wonderful picture of it. It's actually a postcard. I believe it was a drawing, but you can see the face there, and this is much older than the last photograph. Very prominent. I really am kind of blown away about how that could naturally occur. But I do find it interesting. And again, you guys live in such a wonderful place and are so close to so many things that getting out there and looking at things and asking questions, I think, is really important, especially these days.
Yes. Well, you know, I'm not from Philadelphia. I wasn't born here. I moved here. And I think seeing the landscape and the profound nature that's just here in the city, where people that were born here might just kind of take it for granted, it really sparked my interest and my curiosity, you know. So that's what kind of led me on this journey. And I've I appreciate it. I enjoy it, you know. And I think it's important, uh, different angles and different perspectives on what really happened, you know, need to be heard. It's very relevant in this time. So I'll be that small instrument playing my part to make that happen, you know.
Really appreciate you. And I just want to say that, you know, bless the earth, care for the earth, and you know, treat each other with respect and treat everybody and everything with respect, and just find some kind of way to give back and focus on a purpose that's greater than yourself, because when you do that, happiness is something that just kind of comes with it.
Mm, thank you for that wise mind. All right, Sister Julie Sky, I feel like as uh, Tammany Day 2022 begins to materialize, we'll come back and speak more on it. I'm a little scared of Facebook, but I'm gonna go ahead and jump in that matrix on May 1st so I can, check y'all out and just see what's going on and be a part in some way. And again, I thank you for your time and the wisdom that you shared, his uh, history of your lineage, and yeah, peace and love.
Peace and love to you.